All right. Well, good day, everyone. Hello. It is I was gonna say it's good to see you, but it's actually good to at least see your names virtually here at our webinar here today. Good day, everybody. My name is Steve Jackson. I'm the Senior Vice President of Broker Concierge here at PrimePay. And however it is displaying in your window, your screen, we have Lisa Collins, Director of our Broker Concierge and HR Services division here at PrimePay. So Lisa Collins, welcome. Good to
Hello.
talk with you once again here on these webinars. All right, folks. Well, we are thrilled to have you here today. Thrilled to have you come. You know, as more and more businesses are getting back to work, you know, we know that you are also getting busier and busier. And so we do appreciate taking a little bit of time here today to sit with us to learn about this new tool for your agency. You know, we originally were not going to do this, and then we got actually an overwhelming response from our webinar here earlier in the month that said, no, it'd be pretty important for us to provide some greater detail into your agency's use and empowerment here of this compliance assessment tool. So we're going to devote just the early stage of this presentation, just providing a little bit of the meat and the foundation for why you are going to be looking and utilizing this specific tool. And then Lisa is going to take that deeper dive. We think that it's important for you to have more of the visual of what this looks like. All right, so that way you can get a better handle on how you might begin to think, how can I as a broker or as an agency, how can we begin to adopt and utilize this effectively within our agency? So as always, we are willing to take some questions. We're going to try to get up and down here, you know, quickly here so that you can get about your day. But if you have some specific questions as we go throughout, please go ahead and go into the menu box, the question box. You can go ahead and type that out at any time. All right. And then if we can't answer it here today, we will get back to you directly. We'd also ask, as you guys are signing off here today, we are bringing a survey to you as well. And so we would like your feedback on that, okay? And so we'll give a little more detail to that here at the end, but we'd love to hear from you. That'll be important here in our follow-up. So I do hope that you are well. We're going to go ahead and get started. You know, as you think about this title here, as you see on the screen, the compliance assessment tool, there is a word there that oftentimes does this to you, right? I know there's certain words, Lisa, right? I mean, that they hit you, you know, a little differently. You've got a scared look. You've got deer in the headlights. You know, it almost it forces you to not even do anything, right? You're just like, okay, what do I do next? Oh my word. Or I don't want to go there. You know, I'm scared to go there. I just don't want to unearth things that I don't wish to unearth right now. You know, my client and I are having a great relationship, but I need to talk about compliance, really? So this may be the look on your face as a broker, but it's probably also a look on your client's face as well, right? Because as you approach some of these discussions, it can truly give pause to a client to really truly wonder, well, where do we start with this? And I just want to show a picture here that I thought might be helpful as well. Think of your client here, you know, as the bucket. Their business is a bucket. The client has had this business, this bucket. They're using it. They're filling it up every day, every week. You know, they're trying to make more widgets. They're trying to provide those special services, whatever it is. But all along the way, right, the years that this employer has been in business, this bucket has been used tremendously. And through that lifetime of this client, there have been holes, some tiny holes, brand new holes that have been, you know, established. There are much larger holes from where most of the utilization is occurring. And I just want you to think about this client here for a while. Every client that you have, they have this bucket, and this client is filling it with water. But when we think about it from a compliance standpoint, water is exiting, meaning there are compliance holes, there are compliance gaps with every single one of your prospects. Some of them have really large holes, right? They're quite evident to you, and you can sometimes attack those with vigor. And then you have those smaller ones that Oh, yeah. We want to attack that too. That's actually vitally important as well. So I just wanted to give you those visuals. You might have that scared look that, I don't know what to do next, but you also need to consider the needs of your clients. Every employer is going to have those specific compliance requirements. So why should your agency adopt a more formal compliance approach, right? And we're showing, kind of highlighting 6 items here. First and foremost, and this is not when Lisa and I put this together, this is not sales fluff here, okay? Because we hear it from mutual clients that we have together. And that is, your clients think of you as a trusted advisor. You've got, maybe they're CPA, right? But it's you. They come to you regularly for guidance and advice, not just on benefits. Certainly, you're putting on a lot of different hats with different questions that are come your way. But you sit in one of the better positions to be able to have the compliance discussion because you are that trusted advisor. They expect you to be advising them here in this manner. You also have the number 2 there, compliance is complicated. A lot of reasons why we have that scared look, or freeze look on our faces is because it's just, boy, do I even want to tackle this right now? Am I even aware of the regulation changes that have occurred here recently, that I even know how to communicate this? Do I even have my script laid out to speak to this client about this complicated issue? So compliance is just complicated. You've got number 3, compliance requirements are ever changing. You guys have been around here even the last 3.5 months, right? Day 100 and right, as far as our stay at home, and so you think about all the changes just in the last 90 to 100 days, and you just think about what has occurred over the last just 12 months, the last 24 months. It is constantly evolving and changing, and so you've got to find ways, meaningful ways. Your clients are coming to you saying, hey, you need to be guiding me in the right direction that meets the needs today, with the current standards, the current regulations. Then we shift here in these last 3 areas. Why you should begin to have more of a formal compliance approach is that you need to think about yourself, your growth. Are you a growth-oriented type of an agency today? Are you kind of retaining status quo? Are you focused on retention efforts, right? Focusing on compliance as a discussion and strategy with your clients can absolutely help with the client retention. Many of you tell us already, and I believe it, we have great retention. Well, what if you just inch that up another 2 or 3%, by introducing more commonality here in discussions as it relates to compliance, or your ability then, if you're not focused as much even on retention, you're focused on growth strategies. What are you trying to move up market more so because of your current segment or sector that you're in? But certainly it can assist as even a new business acquisition tool, right? A lot of times for us to just come in and just start talking about COBRA compliance, I don't know. I mean, is that really that way, that hot topic to reach that client today, or is it better for us to talk about some of the compliance regulations that are around COBRA, like deadline extensions and things like that, that really can impact them today and help them and support them? Guess what? I may have just picked up a new client because of that. All right, so those are our 6 key reasons. But we also want to ensure that as you think about this, compliance is really broad and very complex as it relates to the various regulations, kind of all that technicality that's behind compliance. And so you need some help in guiding the conversation, a guide. And on this next slide here, I put out here kind of a picture. Sorry, got the words in the picture, but if you can see through the words here in the picture, here's this guy that is at the top. He's at the peak of Mount Everest, right? This gentleman right here did not decide a week ago before he was going to scale Mount Everest and just go, hey, I'm going to scale. I mean, let's go. Let's get my plane ticket and I'm going to be there next week and we're going to get it done, right? No, I'm quite certain that everyone that's going to scale Mount Everest, or I surely hope so, actually sought expert opinions. They talk to a Sherpa, those guides that actually get you up the path, and hopefully it's a Sherpa that actually has scaled it before. They know what they're talking about. They've been there. They know what conditions you're going to face and can prepare you accordingly. And so I want you to think here about this compliance assessment tool as kind of your guide. All right, and it's your Sherpa. All right, if we need to go there, but it really your guide here. And so as you look at what this is, we've introduced technology for it to be better for you and your clients. So this is an online dynamic self-assessment tool. All right, so we've put this directly utilizing technology. It is going to identify through this portal, through the questions, and Lisa's going to kind of showcase this here with you. It's going to express or expose, I should say, the gaps of where their compliance resides today. And then if action is taken, it's going to go a long way of mitigating certainly that risk. So what they're going to do in this portal is they're going to answer questions, and it's dynamic. So if they say yes in certain areas, that's actually going to prompt maybe additional questions to show. Whereas if they said no, then the additional questions will not show because it doesn't pertain to them, you know, in some fashion. So it's a dynamic set of questions that will be before that client. And at the end of this, and Lisa will show this, it's going to obtain a compliance score on all of the key elements that it is assessing. All right, and then, I mean, ultimately, you want to be able to provide the employer not with just a screenshot of, hey, you passed, you failed, you know, here's where you rate here currently as far as these compliance items, but there's also going to be a report that will be generated, and then Lisa will actually cover that here a little more in detail. So a lot of the compliance aspects or topics that will be covered here in this tool, as you can see there to the right, ERISA types of questions, 5500, the SPDs, the WRAP documents, your non-discrimination testing is going to be covered there. Premium only plans or cafeteria plans, there's questions surrounding those aspects. COBRA compliance, certainly ACA, there'll be a nice component there in regarding ACA and where your employers stand, really good talk tracks, and also on Family Medical Leave Act, so FMLA. So really, really helpful on these key topics. So we come to, before I'm going to turn this over actually to Lisa, you know, a lot of our conversations that we've had with brokers have also come around, well, the excuses, right? So why am I not talking about this more? And in one respect, you don't have the guide, right? You don't have your Sherpa, okay, in order to get you through to those next steps. But there are certainly excuses, at least out there, these objections, and the objections are coming from, you know, maybe you as the broker and as the consultant, but also directly from the client. And we just want to highlight just a few, right? So we've got, you know, as a broker may say, you know, about their clients, my clients don't know where to begin. They don't know what they don't know. I think in large part, you know, when you don't have confidence or knowledge in compliance, you just don't even know. You have no idea. And so what we want to say to that is that this compliance assessment tool was built to be the starting point. This isn't the end point by any stretch. It is a starting point for you. It enables you to start clicking go on the compliance discussion. Questions then are delivered in that dynamic wizard-like approach. It's going to provide visuals. So as you see there to the right, it's going to actually reflect at the end of their questionnaire as they go through those questions, kind of where can you or how are you assessed in those very topic areas. And then certainly the report is going to be given. We also have said, brokers have said, you know, my clients don't want to spend the money here right now. So I didn't put it out here on the screen, but you know, former U.S. Deputy Attorney General Paul McNulty said this. He said, if you think compliance is expensive, try non-compliance. It can get really expensive. And then I saw this additional quote actually from John Maxwell, so leadership guru, John Maxwell, and he had said this. He goes, there are two paths people can take. They can play now and pay later, or pay now and play later. So it's a matter of taking action now, right? I showed you that bucket, right? The bucket, if it's an older company, this bucket has been used a lot. It's been filled and refilled and refilled. There's holes, little holes, big holes. all that's around. And the longer that business, right, is in business and conducting activity from an employee standpoint, there are major compliance requirements that need to be tackled. So it's much better for an employer to tackle those things now, early on, versus waiting here to the very end. So you know, for clients that don't want to spend the money, we do need to think about that the penalties are far greater than the cost, you know, to certainly get into compliance, right? And within this report, we're going to be able to at least showcase some of those details by reflecting what that potential compliance risk would be, okay? Which I think is important in your communication with the clients. Brokers also said, my clients don't think this is a big deal. We've heard that. I've heard that, you know, plenty as well. And audit's not a real threat. You know, sometimes they think it's just a scare tactic. Well, you know, with anything, right? You have a regulation that is posted. You have the requirements that are laid out to fulfill that requirement. The IRS or the Department of Labor or HHS, they're not just making that up to say, well, we hope you will do that. You know, they're stating you must do that. The Department of Labor has stated publicly that they are quite confident that over 3/4 of all employers are out of compliance. They know that. I mean, it's crazy. So when you look at the Department of Labor site and certainly EBSA, who's the enforcement agency around this, you know, when you look at over $510 million recovered from just informal complaints, that's employees that just contacted EBSA directly and provided a complaint. And then it was up to certainly EBSA to go, oh, okay, I'm going to reach out to that employer and let's get some further information on that. Those informal complaints, when you look at what we've just gone through and continue to go through, right, in regard to the pandemic, there's potential there for more. Employees are stressed, right? You know, more so than in other times, and so important that you know, that an employer does take action today, even though an audit may not be right in their face here in the near distant future. I think the last one here that I have here before I turn it over to Lisa then is, you know, more so here from a broker, and we've heard this many times, where it's just, listen, I as an agency or as an individual, a consultant, a broker, I've not really introduced this, maybe like I should have. You know, we've tackled a lot of other areas for clients, but not specific to this. Where do I begin? How do I bring this up to them now? You know, and several of these requirements have been around for possibly years, right? So, you know, that's a tough one, right? If your clients do bring that up and just say, well, where were you 5 years ago? I mean, I've had this, you know, all of these things in place. There's no better time than now, because the more you do delay, the harder and rougher, the stronger the penalties can be over time. And so tell your clients, you've invested in technology, again, to get the conversation going, to begin assessing where they are, and then to think about how they can appropriately take action on many of those compliance requirements that are brought to the attention. You know, we hope that as you go through this today, and as Lisa gets started here with showcasing and give you some visuals here on what this looks like, we hope that you'll find some real practical use, and also confidence in knowing that you have kind of a Sherpa, your guide, to really get you through these kind of more difficult questions related to these key compliance topics. So Lisa, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. So is everybody ready to see what Steve's been introing this whole time? So how do you get started? It really is a very, very simple process and a very easy system to use. So you simply reach out to your PrimePay rep and you let them know that you, and at the end, we'll give you contact information if you don't have a local PrimePay rep, but just let us know you're interested in getting started. You want to take a look at this, you want to start using it. So once we get that information back from you, your interest, we're going to set your agency up. So your agency will be issued a broker hub. And then you, as an individual consultant, will have user access as well. Once we set up your user access, you will receive this email. Just showing you a sample here. And it says, it gives a live link to the website that will take you to the broker hub. and it provides you with a username that we have set up for you and a system generated password that you will utilize to at least get started. So once you click on that link, you'll see something that looks like this. You'll have a login to your account, and you'll see that I just referenced my username, so LA Collins 12, and then I'm going to put in that password that's provided and log in to the system. The first time you go in, and only the first time, you'll be given these terms and conditions. You do have to read them and agree to them before it will take you into the Broker Hub. Okay, so as simple as that to get started. This is what the beginning of the Broker Hub looks like. You can see that it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. You have two boxes here. You have something called the Compliance RX, little magnifying glass, the yellow box, and you also have Refer Employer. So you have two different options of how you want to engage your clients in this. Referring an employer is more an employer self-assessment. You're giving them a link, you're letting them go off and do it on their own. You can access their report, but they're answering all the questions going through that dynamic wizard format. Or you may say, gosh, I know my clients are going to struggle with this. They're going to need my help. In that case, you're going to want to use the Compliance RX because it allows you to go through that process with them, okay, in tandem. So you can do it through a webinar like we are today. You don't even have to meet them in person. So looking at the Refer an Employer, so the purple box, simply, and I know it's small, I apologize, but you're going to put in their email address and a subject line, whatever you want, compliance assessment tool, gauge your compliance readiness, whatever, to catch their attention, and you're going to send it off to them. This is what they'll see. They'll get a client email, and it will actually have your agency name in here. So we use a fake agency name, a compliance focused agency demo, but it will say your agency. Just like you had a link, they'll have a link to get into the system. And they only have a promo code. They don't have a password. So when they click on that link to get them in, very similar, it's going to look like what you're used to, but they're going to use the promo code. Now, the promo code is going to be your agency name. We shorten it up in many cases because of just the size limit. So these were just the initials of that particular agency. All right, so it just reinforces that you're involved in this, you're offering this to them. All right, so you want to go ahead and validate that. And then this is what they see. Okay, this is their first step. But let's say you didn't choose that purple Refer an Employer and you are with that client that really needs a lot of help. So what you're going to do is when you click on that Compliance RX yellow box, you will be presented with this information, similar to what they see in their first step if it's a self-assessed demo, okay? So you're going to put in your client contact name, the person who's going to take the assessment, their email address, and their phone number. When you do that, you'll notice that if they're doing it on their own, or if you just forget how to do this, or you can just say, well, let's take a look at what this is. These are actually videos to help guide you through the assessment. Probably don't need them because this is so straightforward, but there is some guidance there if you do. You'll also note there's an area here that you can refer back. So once you go through the entire assessment, you'll be given a code at the end, and it's a report ID. You're going to simply, or the client can simply put in that client ID number, and it will reproduce that report anytime. It never goes away, okay? You can see it, it never is archived off. So let's really delve into what all the assessment is about and what they'll see. Now, again, this is small and I'm not going to go through every single question, but it will give you a general sense of what it looks like. I do suggest before you go through it the first time with the client, you run through it maybe for your own agency. So you're going to put in the company name here. It's also going to ask you about the company. So is this a commonly controlled group or not? It's also going to ask about what type of employees that you have. It's going to want to know the size of the group as well. Now, it's collecting this information because, again, it's dynamic, so it's only going to present those areas that are applicable based on the type of company and the size of the group. You'll also see here that you're going to select what plans they have, again, making it more dynamic to help really assess that particular company's needs. All right. In here, you've got these little information bubbles. It's a little eye bubble here. Anytime throughout, you'll see several throughout this as we go through these screens. It helps define what that question is asking or what a particular definition is. So here, if I click on the information box, you can see here it's giving a definition of an employee, talks about sole proprietors, 2%, and so forth. Okay, so really helps the employer and maybe even you in some of these situations through what the question is asking and how to answer it. All right. Every single area screen that you go through, it's going to tell you what it's about. So this particular one is about Form 5500. It's going to ask these questions. Now, we've already gone through this as a screenshot. We will take you through a live demo if you're interested in continuing to pursue this. But what happens is as I answer yes or no, certain questions may pop up and others may not based on those answers. Okay, so very dynamic there. You'll also see that throughout here, if you hit this little plus button, it will bring up a notes section. And that just will guide you because at the end of the report, it will give you your notes. So in this example, I'm looking at this and I'm saying, gosh, I'm really unsure. So I wrote myself a note to check with my CFO if a 5500 form was filed, for an example. Now, I'm trigger happy there. So I'm going to go through each section just to show you what it looks like and what the topic is. So this is your summary plan descriptions. I answered these questions where I knew every single question would pop up. You may have a situation where only half these questions appear because based on the answers. And you'll see here all these informational bubbles to help guide you through that assessment. Non-discrimination testing here. It's going to ask you, are you offering any pre-tax benefits? And if you say yes, it's going to ask what type of benefits are pre-tax, your medical, your dental, do you have a dependent care account, do you have an FSA account, a health reimbursement account, or a self-funded, a self-insured plan. We want to know this in the assessment because we want the client to understand that these are potentially need non-discrimination testing almost in all cases, all right? And then it asks here, for example, have you run mid-year preliminary non-discrimination testing? This is a really good topic today because as our work environment has really fluctuated during this pandemic, a lot of people have been laid off or maybe on furlough. So your group may look very different today than what it looked like at the beginning of the year. Quite possibly, it could fail in non-discrimination testing. So maybe you offer a dependent care account and a lot of people are out not using the dependent care account. You want to make sure you're running these tests because if it fails at the end of the year, you don't have time to correct it. So really encourage that mid-year testing to be done. All right, and then it continues on with the other questions. Okay, so again, it's going to ask you what plans are applicable. If I had selected none, none of this would have showed up. ACA reporting, some questions here to see if they are applicable. Now I had answered, I'm over 50 employees and over 100 employees, so these particular areas are coming up. So because I answered the 50, the ACA reporting section does come up. Because I answered I'm over 20, COBRA is presented to answer these questions to see if they are complying with COBRA. I will point out that a very good conversation to have is that initial rights notice. Many times that when we take over COBRA administration from a company that is doing it in-house, they don't even know what that initial rights, or sometimes it's called a general rights notice, is. So these really bring up good discussions as you're going through these questions. Premium only plan, because I had answered yes on the pre-tax, it wants to know if I have a premium only plan. So again, a dynamic area that has come up based on an answer. And whether or not, because I had 50 or more, it's asking the family medical leave question as well. So there's a lot of questions around ERISA, really important here. And again, you're going to go through each area and answer those questions. You'll see here too, as we're going through it, I want to point out that it will tell you where you are in the assessment. So I'm coming down to the end here. I'm at 90% completion. The prior screen, 80%. Okay, so it guides you through how close you are to finishing. And then this is ending up the last page, 100% completed. Again, these different questions, wanting to go through. So take a look at probably a best practice is all the information bubbles. We actually are going to provide you with a sheet of all those definitions. So if they ask you something like, well, what does unfunded mean? You know, how are these assets being funded? You know, so you can have that discussion and know what that question is relating to. So for example, you may find out if it's not unfunded or if it's funded. They potentially may have some Form 5500 requirement filings, even if they're under 100 employees, because of funding arrangements. So again, really good, brings up a ton of great compliance conversations. Then at the end, we're done. This is what's presented, and this is online. You'll see here an overall compliance score. And visually, I think it's very powerful because anything that is in red, lighter red, maybe orange area, is really where they need to take a closer look and pay attention to. Your yellows kind of caution, your green, you're good. So because I have, you'll see here down here, potential compliance gaps, I had 3 areas that were in this red or orange area. It's going to identify those areas below for me. And you'll see it gives me an overall score, but it also assesses it by category that we went through. All right, so I look at this, I'm doing okay, there, let's say. I can simply click and download a report, which we're going to show you a sample report here in a second. After I look at that report, or maybe I don't even look at the report, I'm panicked, right? That look that Steve showed in the beginning, I'm going to register for help. And I'll show you what that looks like here in a minute as well. All right, so this pops up online right after they have completed the assessment. This is the compliance report they download. Now remember, you will get a report ID that can be put back in to assess this report anytime, so it doesn't need to be downloaded. So just a simple, cover page there. This is a little bit different look, a bar look of just those gauges that we were just looking at. So I'm gonna pay attention to the areas that show up in red. And I'm just going to pull up one area. So each area has the same format. This is 5500 compliance. It will tell you what the compliance requirements are in great detail, what the company's score was based on their answers. It's going to give the actual answer to each one of the questions, so you have access to this, right? And you can review this report before you have the conversation with the client as well. Or maybe you take the assessment and schedule a second follow-up call after you go through the report. Then it talks about the potential compliance risks and the penalties associated for non-compliance. So really powerful information in this. And then I referenced the notes section as I went through. I made myself some notes. They're showing up in red, and it does show the question that I have the note going towards, okay? Because in that example, I checked the CFO.
I was going to say, Lisa, just to comment on the penalties, what we decided to do, at least in this report, it's not going to be able to give the actual penalty amount. It's not going to say you currently have a penalty amount of $10,000, $2,200, right? It's not going to do that, but it is going to provide the dollars of, well, what does a penalty in this area, what does it financially mean? What could it mean? Okay, so you're going to get kind of the base, per employee per day types of numbers that would at least enable you to at least gauge maybe the severity, of where that penalty could reside if they certainly are in the red, and haven't been as compliant there as they need to be.
So the report is quite extensive, and they may look at it and say, gosh, I really need some help. And you've gone through the assessment with them, you communicate back and forth where to turn to for help. They also can go to that the I need help red button that I showed you a couple slides back on the site at the end of the report, the assessment. And this is what that looks like. So it's just simply an area that they can complete their information. So their email address, their company information, what plans they want to talk about. It also, this is just, I couldn't fit everything. It will also have them provide their broker information. Okay, so if we do get it, we can reach out to you and we can see how you want to structure it. Do you want to jump on a call together? Do you have that handled? We'll let you guide, those next steps there. All right. So that is a very high level overview, but as I went through it, it is as simple as it looks. Probably the toughest part is answering the questions, collecting the data to answer the questions, and I'm sure if they're doing it on their own, they're going to turn to you for some advice as well and guidance on it. What we will provide you if you're interested in the compliance assessment tool is your hub, as I showed you in the beginning. So you have your own online broker hub. And that is where you're going to invite clients to take that assessment, or you're going to walk through the assessment together with the client. So it initiates each assessment tool. It also is a report repository. So you will have all the reports that are run under your agency user that we provide to you. Okay, so none of that is lost, completely accessible to you as well as the client. We're going to provide you with setup instructions. Probably don't even need to open those instructions, but if you do need the guidance, it's there. We do have the definitions. So every information box, we are providing definitions. So it makes it easier for you to just be able to flip through it as you're going through the report. If there's a question, you can take a look at it. The report, as we showed you, has, jumped again, trigger happy, compliance score, what the regulation requires, the client's actual response, the potential compliance risk, and as Steve spoke about, the potential penalties if they're not in compliance. Now, you do have access to PrimePay's compliance team. If you work with us, you're probably familiar with the team. It is headed by an ERISA attorney. We produce great content. If some of this area you're just kind of struggling with, your PrimePay rep, most times with our subject matter experts that we have, can answer those questions, but they can also turn to the compliance team for assistance with this as well to help you out. All right, you want to see if we have any questions before we kind of end this?
The one question that just had come in, and because we're already here at our little past 2 here. So, but one of the questions was just around the audit. What size companies are the Department of Labor audits most likely coming from? I guess I'll just speak from what we're seeing on our experience side. The audits are not just focused on large employers. They're not just focused on 100 plus. Some of the more recent audits that we've needed to just participate in, they're a mutual client, we're providing assistance through the audit process. These are clients under 100, in several cases under 50 lives. And so I guess I'll just say, right now it seems or appears to be fair game, depending on the specific maybe part of the country and where they're doing their specific audits. But we definitely are seeing it, but in a broad-based sense, in many places.
I will say too, a lot of these audits are because an employee is disgruntled. So it can happen in any size company. They simply go to the DOL site, they register, I guess is the word, a grievance, and that can open a can of worms. So
well, I just see a comment that is spot on. And when you think about the IRS, the IRS is doing audits, but that's tax specific, right? And then you've got the DOL or EBSA, that are doing these other, Department of Labor types of audits. And so you really do have various teams, right, that are out there with different areas of focus. And so we're just seeing it kind of all across the board here right now. Why don't we, at least for right now, just for time's sake here, we will wrap up. I hope today here that Lisa was at least able to provide to you a very good picture as to what the extent of this process is for you. As I said before, you can think of it as a Sherpa or at least a guide, but it is a true guide to get you through the conversation. And it is still just a starting point, but it certainly provides great insight as to the healthiness, the readiness of this client or your client or prospect as it relates to compliance. So we hope you got a lot out of it. Yeah, Lisa.
I do see one question that I think we should point out. They want to know what the cost is to this.
Let's see. Well, shall we say this? This is yours to use, not yours, Lisa, yours as an agency to use, and it is complimentary. We are giving this to you, but we ask you these couple things, and it's going to be in the survey that we're going to send to you here as soon as the webinar is completed. Okay, and the survey is this: would you like more information or training on this particular tool for your agency? We are prepared to provide that training for your agency. We'd like to hear from you in that. You might say, hey, I would like an opportunity to actually showcase this overview to my clients. Would you be willing to train clients and talk through this, as an overview compliance assessment tool with clients? We'd be readily able to do that as well. So if you would, in the survey afterwards, just kind of let us know what your thoughts are in that regard. We will get our team then directly connected with you to get those things aligned. But this is a free resource from PrimePay here to you. Truly feel that it can help impact your discussion in this area. Just lastly here, and I just want to at least just mention, we're excited to actually bring Shay Rowbottom, who I guess is really listed right now as the LinkedIn queen here right now. She is our guest for our next webinar coming up here on July 8th. She went from, I don't know, 60,000 contacts in LinkedIn a year ago to north of 200,000, or I think she said she hit the max that LinkedIn has. She can't get any more. She has that many. She has made an impact, and we feel she's going to make an impact for you. So come join us in our next webinar, July 8th. I think you will not want to miss the type of content that she's going to bring. She's amazing. So hopefully you can join us here for that. And then also, so I mentioned the survey. If you have additional questions, you can reach out to us directly at concierge@primepay.com. The phone number is listed. You can certainly reach out to your local PrimePay sales or business development team to gather more information. And always consider our additional resources, our blog post. We love our blog posts, just really good, rich content that you could pass on to your clients or take in yourself. And there's also a great resource on our support.primepay.com site from COVID-19, but certainly resources on many of the other solutions and services that we provide. Not just salesy, this is like real content and information is what that is for, okay? So please visit that site. So Lisa, thank you. Well done. Really appreciate that insight. We hope that all of you have garnered at least some great insight. If you need to scale Everest, please do so. But you're going to need a Sherpa, okay, for that one. But allow this guide here, compliance assessment tool, to be your Sherpa in getting the compliance established, started, initiated with your clients. You guys have a great day, and we look forward to seeing you on July 8th. Take care.
Thanks for your time, everyone. Bye.